This fourth and final section of the Beatles medley has a lot of bowing techniques that require that you're at the balance point as well. Are you noticing a trend? I'd like to actually just zoom forward and begin at measure 173. Before we even play this measure, would you take your pencil and mark that beat 3, the A quarter note there, is still an A flat. That flat symbol needs to be put on all 3 of the A's up until it says natural again. So the first one they've printed for you, A flat right there, and then the accidental is still good for the second and third A's of that measure. So just make sure that you've gotten that printed or written in to your part there. So now that you've got that little bit of housekeeping done, let's just play it. So I'm staying mainly in second position for this. 4, 3, 1, open, 4, and then I replace my 4th finger A flat with 3rd finger, so I can play A flat again on 3rd finger and then A natural on 4th finger, and then 1st finger again, staying in second position for the F's in 174 right after that. So slow motion again, and then I replace, still A flat but with 3rd finger now. And then up to tempo. The next things that I want to look at is this forte piano, starting at 182, or rather pick up to 182. For a forte piano, it requires a burst of weight and speed at the beginning of the bow stroke, and then it dies out to get the piano effect, so it's loud and soft. And for your bow technique, that translates to fast and then slow. But then there's a crescendo on it, so we've got to get faster again. So you're going to end up with 3 different bow speeds. Explosively fast to start a nice strong forte, slows down for the piano, and then starts to speed up again as you finish that bow stroke. Like that. So I would practice that several times just with an open string that you're comfortable with, and then subject it to the notes. So starting at 181, some of you may choose to go to the A string, some of you may choose to pop into 4th position. Either way is fine, but I want to point out another thing that my bow is doing. After that forte, piano, and crescendo, I've actually marked a lift in my part after the tied 8th note to get back to the balance point. So the last 3 8th notes of 182 are at the balance point. So again, in slow motion, starting at 181, and then I do a retake to get back to the balance point. Up, down, up. This section beginning at 183 is fairly straightforward once you get the hang of the bowing here. All these tied notes going across the bar line are all hooked up bows. Once you figure that out and once you've practiced that a couple of times, your body kind of gets the hang of it. Just be sure that you're giving yourself enough room for the accented up bows that are also hooked. So starting at 183 in slow motion, just to practice the physical bowing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Hook. Let's do that once more, and you'll also notice on this time that I'm really making sure I'm not playing full value for quarter notes or tied notes. I'm actually kind of stopping the bow on the string, just like I did in all the other sections of this piece, for the sake of clarity and clean playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Starting here at 195, I'm definitely going to recommend, if you're playing the upper WC, that you go into 4th position because we're going to need it in just a little bit. Up until that point is also, starting at 183, it's possible to play that upper part in 4th position as well. 1st position may be easier or more comfortable for you. I'm choosing to use 1st position right here because it's supposed to be fortissimo, and I kind of like that brighter sound. But beginning at measure 195, I definitely am going to need you to go to 4th position, and you'll see why here at the very, very end. So starting right at 195, 1st G I'm playing in 1st position, and then I pop straight to 4th position. Now, the second to last measure, measure 198, it breaks the pattern that you established so far where you're hooking all of those up bows that are tied across the bar line. But there's a good reason for it. So let's talk about the fingering and notes of this upper part. The lower part can all be played in 1st position. It's not going to be an issue for you. This upper part, however, is a little bit tricky. So let's work it out. The first note that you have at 198 is going to be B natural, still up bow because it's tied over, right? B natural, A natural down bow. Kick back a half step, 1st finger A flat. Extend 2nd finger to be a B flat. A flat again because the accidental carries through the bar. A flat, B flat, and then C natural. So you start in 4th position with a closed hand, but then your 1st finger has to kick back to A flat. So then you're ending with the extended hand in 4th position. So here's 198 slowly. And just like we talked about the A flats at 173 and making sure that you've got your accidentals penciled in or printed in there, make sure you do the same thing right here at 198. The A flat and B flat, once you see those accidentals there, they're good for the last, 3rd to last and 2nd to last note of this measure in the upper WC. So that's just a little bit of a finger twister. I would practice that out. I recommend that you practice it out pretty slowly, without the rhythms, without the bowings, just to work on note accuracy first. And once you're comfortable and you've got the notes really well learned in your fingers, then add the bowings and rhythms back in. So starting again at 195 to put all of this together, still in slow motion, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I would just sit right there in 4th position again, nice and happy there and safe. Back to A natural and B natural, closed hand there for the very last 2 notes of the piece. So hopefully this has been helpful. I've given you some things to think about. Takeaways are, for this pop style of playing basically all syncopated rhythms, we're going to play without holding the ties for full value, so clipping them. Up bows generally tend to be or need to be lifted off the string and clipped. Down bows a little bit heavier, so we can kind of get that pop feel. And then as much as possible playing at the balance point. Good luck, and I hope to hear you soon.